My guest for the morning, Bernard Mona, is the General Secretary of the People's National Convention, and also from an Nkrumah's party, we have the second Vice Chairperson of the CPP, Rodalyn Imoro Ayana. Rodalyn, how are you? Okay. Bernard.
Chief.
SAP.
I did now.
Okay. Now, let's talk about UTAG. UTAG on Wednesday raised a concern they're having with government decision to scrap the book and research allowances, and they said, well, that is a very good thing, but then an arrears they have, that is for the the academic year in which they've just completed, they would need that to be paid. They are not getting the right signals from the Education Ministry, just because the one in charge of tertiary education, Samuel Kudjeto Ablakwa, had said that, well, their allowances will not be paid. And the research fund that was supposed to be set in place too also has still not been set up, and they don't know what they'll do. They're claiming they want to join POTAC, and that's not too good for tertiary education in Ghana.
Obviously, every Ghanaian should be devastated by this news. The recurring nature of strikes, particularly by public and civil servants, have in one way or the other caused this nation irreparable damage. I do recall that it was under the NDC or so, yeah, the NDC, not PNDC, that schools were closed down for more than a year. And therefore it affected people, and up to date some of them are still affected. Now, the lecturers, or the teachers for that matter, will definitely go onto the negotiation table after all these problems that have been caused, and the issue is resolved through negotiation, through dialogue, and not through the strike action. So what it means is that, yes, they go on these strikes, but it is not the strikes that bring closure to the matter, because they don't go to strike and say, we are not coming back. They go to strike, and then somehow they are compelled, or they come to an understanding that, look, let's go and sit down and talk. And in the course of the talking, they will have some agreement. In most cases, they get their arrears. But the students that have lost the time cannot be recompensated. The parents that have lost in terms of their spending on the awards cannot also be compensated for. And so at the end of the day, it is the teachers that benefit. I'm not saying this to say that they do not have a right of claim to whatever arrears or whatever claims they want to make. But end result is that it is the people that suffer. It is parents that suffer. For instance, when that strike action occurred, some people had to do 2-3 years more in school instead of just completing within a certain period. Some people that possibly, and you do know these days, people are completing one tertiary institution and they are applying to attend another tertiary institution. Some of them are even international programs. And so when you apply and you are given an offer pending your results, and then you go on strike, everything is thrown out of gear. And I think that it is something that we have to consider. In other jurisdictions, I had the opportunity, rare opportunity, to study in Germany. I never came across my professors going on strike. I never. Simply because each and every professor is evaluated on your own merit and you do your own negotiation. You understand? It's not an omnibus that once you are a graduate teacher, whether you are a competent graduate teacher or not, you must earn the same level of income that others are earning. It's obvious that, look, some of our professors are very good. But there are some of the professors, to be honest, when they come to the classroom, you wonder whether indeed they are the professors that we are supposed to go through. So obviously, I think that there is this challenge that we have to face. And I also want to caution that, look, government pronouncements, if you have a minister, and the minister's attitude is that issues of this nature, instead of meeting with the people to sit down and talk with, you jump into the media. You inflame passions. They will take some rigid positions that may not be healthy for our collective forward. And I think that it is these kind of things that are coming, because the people appear to be incensed by the pronouncements of the deputy minister. True or false, that is what they are claiming. Okay. And yesterday I thought that listening to them, I thought that, look, they are both on the same wavelength, because the minister is saying that we paid them the last batch in September. So we intend to pay this one in September.
No, it's not the same thing. I think the minister said that it is paid in September, but it is not as if that it is paid in September. Before,
yeah, and then
before Rodalyn comes in, though, I have you refer to them as the people. Well, the people's representative is on the line. We have the UTAC president, Samuel Ofori Bequin. He has a doctorate, so it has to precede the name, Dr. Bequin. Dr. Bequin, very good morning to you. Now, following the discussions you've been having on other media platforms, you're still making up your mind to go on strike, joining POTAG, just because of the book and research allowances?
Well, it's not just because of the book and research allowances. It's because of the tools that we need to work with. If you employ somebody to do something for you and you don't provide the person with the tools, you don't expect the person to do the work. That's exactly our position. We've been haggling over this for a very long time. We started in December when the government came out with an announcement that they are going to replace the book and research allowances with the National Research Fund. We went all the way to the Labour Commission, and they were told that they had no right to unilaterally take that decision. And if they want to review anything, they have to bring it to the negotiation table, which they have not. So the status quo ante have to remain. They have to pay as the book and research until the time that both parties sit down and negotiate for the way forward. And that's what they are refusing to do. We told them to pay the 2013-14 academic year book and research allowances. And then we will now open negotiation for the way forward, because we also have our own proposal that we will bring to the table. And they refuse to do that. So the Labour Commission now directed that then we should go for arbitration on the issue. Whilst waiting for this arbitration to come up, only for the deputy minister to come and say that they don't owe us anything because they usually pay the money in September, which is a complete falsehood. Last year we had to go on strike before they paid. And if somebody forces you to pay something at the time that it's long overdue, it doesn't mean that that is the time that you always have to pay that money.
Well, Dr. Bequin, let me get this straight. Are you, well, just by dint of principle, going on strike, or you're going on strike because you're incensed with the comments of the deputy minister?
Well, it's by principle, but it's the comment that has made us to come out, because we were just quietly hoping that they would settle the issue.
Okay,
so by their action, we are now giving them the caution that if they continue on this, then that's what is going to happen.
Okay, you stay put on the line, because what we do here is you are part of the discussion, and I have panelists also here. Rodalyn Imoro Ayana is also with the CPP, also is a professional as well. So what's your comment on all this, Rodalyn?
I just want to know whether there was some form of consultation between government and UTAC when government was going to take this particular decision of having them collect their research allowances like from one source. That's what I want to know. Was there any form of consultation? Did government go into consultation with you, negotiate with you, and let you know that from now on we are not going to be paying individually, but then you access it as and when you want it? Did that happen?
Well, was that the case?
There was no consultation. We just said it on air that that's the decision. And that was when the president went to parliament and make that statement. And then it was followed by the finance minister when he was presenting the budget for the 2014 financial year. And in that budget statement, he made mention of that fact. And that was what the government was told by the Labour Commission, that they had no right to doing that, because the book and research allowances in the first place came out as a result of negotiation from the two parties. It's part of our conditions of service. And you cannot unilaterally vary somebody's condition of service to the person's disadvantage. So if you want to vary anything, then you bring it to the negotiation table for both parties to negotiate. And that's what they refuse to do.
When I interviewed the POTAC Kumasi Polytechnic chapter president, I asked him this very question about how does it become that an allowance is part of your is it your emolument, or how do you call it, your condition of service? Now, if it's an allowance, it's for a certain purpose. If you don't undertake that very activity, you won't enjoy that very allowance for the year.
Exactly.
So what's your fear?
No, we needed to undertake the activity. You see, what happened that, if you remember, in 1994, 95, lecturers went on almost a 1-year strike because of their total condition of service having to do with the tools that they need to work with, books, journals, and their salaries. So as part of the settlement, the government then decided, okay, if we can't from the beginning provide you with these tools, then what we'll do is we'll give you money for you to provide the tools yourself to do the activities for which you have been employed. And that's been the issue since 1996 up to this point. You see, we don't just go to the lecture halls to lecture. You have to plan. You do instructional planning, and as part of instructional planning, you have to look at current issues in your field of specialization or discipline. You also have to conduct what we call basic fundamental research, which is completely different from applied research that is still towards solving societal problems. This one is just to open frontiers of knowledge in your disciplinary area. Basic ones that enable us to go and teach. Buy books, subscribe to journals, and also get published, because if you belong to a community, you don't only take from the community, you also contribute to the community. Okay. So that's exactly what we use the money for. So if they say they are not going to pay us, then they are putting stumbling blocks on our way from performing our functions.
Well, I have one more question for you, but you stay on. And right. So, Bernard, what's your response to all that he's been saying?
I am a bit taken aback that they are resolved to go on this strike.
Well, they are not satisfied with all the responses. It seems that communication from government is not right.
Why are you answering the question?
Judging by their own observation.
Why are you answering the question?
Well, you have one more response to it. I
am amazed that, listening to Doctor, he's saying that they were not intending actually to go on this strike, but they are incensed by the pronouncements of a deputy minister, and to that extent they want to join and go on this strike to show force. And I think that that force is not affecting the deputy minister. That force is affecting our children. It is affecting our people. And sometimes...
Well, they also have to be paid.
No doubt about it.
Why is everything an issue of morality in Ghana?
It's not a morality issue. Why? At the end of the day, it is not the strike that is going to pay them their money. It is to go back to the negotiation and start. So I think that even as I admit that some pronouncements, for instance, coming from officialdom may be distasteful, we should mature to go and say, look, let's go to dialogue and let's overcome these inadequacies.
Why don't we have the maturity on the part of government and its ministers then? If you're talking about maturity in this very sense.
Anybody could goof. Anybody could say something that is not palatable. But must you react on the basis of the negative pronouncement that somebody has made, or there was indeed something that you wanted to do and you just decided that, look, we will not tolerate this kind of pronouncement. On that basis, we are going to inflict hardship on our people.
Okay, so Dr. Bekuing, you've been hearing the comment. Yes, as you respond to that,
I think the person making that comment didn't understand exactly the position that I brought forward.
The person is called Bernard Mona. Bernard Mona is...
Okay, all right. So, Bernard didn't understand what I put forward. The issue has been that we have been haggling over this for a very long time. We have had a patient. If Bernard has been following the issue, remember that the ministry itself was praising UTAG all the way and blaming POTAG, that POTAG is too militant, and then we understand things. It's because all this while we have been that backshot, as he's saying, and we have taken a position that we will let the processes go through. But then everything has an end. We cannot be dialoguing, negotiating forever. Meanwhile, when we need the resources to work. So that's why I'm saying that for now we are on vacation. That's why we seem to be quiet. But we are given a warning that if it is not settled before the beginning of the next academic year, then we are not going to work, because that's what we need to work. So I don't see the maturity aspect in this.
Okay, so it means that
it's wrong for us to demand our materials to work well.
So it means that, Dr. Bekuing, the next academic year will start somewhere in August, I believe.
Exactly.
And then their payments, according to the minister, would have been paid in September. So for a month after your reopening, you wouldn't be teaching, would you? Unless perhaps maybe it's a business school or something.
So they pay us, yes. We will only be teaching because we need the money to acquire the resources to teach.
This is show of force.
Pardon?
You are showing force that, well, me too,
No,
I did.
well, I don't see how it becomes a show of force. You have employed a mason to put up a house for you. You have not supplied the mason with sand, cement, blocks. And if the mason doesn't come to work, will you say that the mason is showing force?
Well, nice analogy you tried drawing there. And thank you very much, Dr. Samuel Ofori Bequim. He's the president of the University Teachers Association of Ghana, known by the acronym UTAG. And they are joining POTAG, that's the polytechnic angle of their organization. And they are protesting comments not only made by a Deputy Minister of Education in charge of tertiary education, but also the inability or the concerns being raised by them that government is not likely to pay their book and research allowance already owe them for an academic year that has already ended, just because also we're going to have the setting up of a research fund. They're not too happy about it. Rodely.
Well, I wanted to find out if there was some form of negotiation or consultation before all these things came out. Roland, education in this country is going downhill every day. And it's because of the many things that we are doing that we are not consulting. We end up saying that we've converted polytechnics into tertiary institutions.
We can award degrees.
We can award degrees and certificates and diplomas. We turn teacher training colleges into tertiary institutions, nursing training colleges into diploma awarding institutions. It is not just by name. You have to put the inputs to enable these people be able to deliver. So once you decide that this is what I want, then you must be ready to pay for it. So what I am saying is that I will side with UTAG and POTAG, you know, in the fact that if government decides that there is going to be something like this, a research fund for everyone to kind of like go in the kitty when you want it, fine, but discuss it with the people involved. You must discuss it with the stakeholders. You just can't get up and then just say that this is what I have decided, and it means you are also showing your force.
Now, is it that we have a lapse in communication? Because as far as Bernard and the other stakeholders would want UTAG and POTAG to make sure, as far as negotiations are concerned, they give the leverage for some excessive exhaustion of deliberations, the employer also needs to do same.
That's exactly.
And that's government.
That's government.
Because sometimes the utterances perhaps
yeah, maybe
are a bit touching on nerves.
Yes, the utterances are a bit touching on nerves. Government has a responsibility towards giving them the inputs. Now, when that is not made available, by all means, they will complain. Now, UTAG, we are all sitting here saying that if they don't go, our children get hurt by it all. Yes, so do they. But we can't always use our children as the chip, the bargaining chip. It's always, if they don't go, our children will suffer. What is government doing about it so that they will also feel comfortable to deliver to our children? Because at the end of the day, when UTAG doesn't get all the facilities, then they come out with half-baked. Look, industry is crying because the type of graduates we are having these days do not just meet the mark. And it's all because of these things.
Because the education standards
are just not right. Industry is
Rhoda,
suffering.
always hitting the nail by the head. Please, are you also going to hit the center?
Oh, no. What I
massage, don't massage the issue.
I'm not massaging anything. Take it this way. One, it is not only the people that suffer, the students that suffer. Parents do suffer. Our society do suffer as well. Some industries were waiting for some of these graduates to come out so they can pick them and select the best one to increase productivity. So the nation is suffering as a result of they are not coming out. So it is not just the students that suffer. That's one. Two, parents will have to now look for extra resources in order to stay their wards in school because the professors have decided to go on strike on something that I believe will be resolved by negotiation and not just by their going on strike. At the end of the day, they are going to go back. Mark it on this table. It is not the strike that is going to. It is that they are going to be called. They go and sit down. They will come up and then they smile at each other and say, "We have reached a deal."
Okay. Why is it that?
Is that what we want?
No. Let me.
No,
don't land on this one. Let me ask a question. Do you think it is fair? No. Let me ask a question. I'm the one asking a question. Unless you want to.
So you don't want me to conclude before you ask a question. Possibly, if I conclude, your question may not be relevant.
It will be. It will be. Now, let me. Do you think that perhaps we're not being very much proactive as far as these things are concerned? Now, if we will go and sit with POTAC and UTAC, why is it that we couldn't have done it 2-3 months ago?
That's why you should have waited. I was going to end at that point. Quickly, that's
a very smart one.
It is a national crisis that our planning is just a suspect. You understand? We do know that we have these number of teachers that are employed. And we do know that this is the quantum that we have to pay them. We do know that we have certain commitments that we have to deliver in order to enable them to prosecute their activities. We wait. We don't look for the resources. We sit down until they start their work and we realize that no, they have not been appropriately tooled so they can do their job. So at the end of the day, it is not just blaming POTAC, but it is also blaming our planning culture, our budgeting culture. That to say that, look, as a nation, we have always tried to be in deficit instead of being in surplus. Let me give you one instance. I said at the time, for instance, Akosombo Dam was built, we were constructing a 600 megawatt of power when our total population demand was just 50 megawatts. We constructed a surplus of 550. We had to go and look for Valco to come and take 300 so that we will now be able to deal with 350. Still, we had a surplus of 250. Today, we are in crisis because of lack of planning. So I'm just saying that the problems we are going through is simply because, look, people are not factoring our population growth rate and other factors that will enable us to do effective planning.
Well, perhaps somebody who has been listening to you and all of you all along is a former president, John Agyekum Kufuor. He's been saying the last couple of days that he feels that not only Ghana, but Africa in general has a leadership crisis. And as a result of that, economists in the sub-region and also in the rest of the continent are not doing too well because the leaders are just not getting their acts right, or plainly are just not up to it. Is that true?
I think that's true. I've always said that we lack visionary leaders in Africa now. Honestly, I mean, everybody is just there. It's like everything we're doing is short term. So long as it keeps me in government and I get all the finer things in life, I'm fine. That is not what we need. We need for people to look ahead and look at the future generations. But if we're going to have governments or leaders that would only come and all they are thinking about is the next election, that's what Africa is all about. You look across and it's like from Mali to Sudan to Liberia to Sierra Leone, Mali, everybody is just fighting about being in power, staying. You know, Ghana is the same thing. We're not any different. It's the next election. We're giving promises and we want to finish those promises because by the time it gets to election time, we must be able to tell Ghanaians that, oh, the 100 schools we promised you, we've done it, we've done this, we've done that, even to the detriment of other things. So we do so many things to please people just to stay in power, not to look ahead. Take a look at Tema. We look at, you know, someone was talking about housing for this country. We go out there and we're looking for people to come in here and invest. State Housing Company or Corporation is
established by Ghana's first president.
Yes, by the first president of this country. It built houses from Ringway Estates to God knows where. Today, we even have private Ghanaian companies and they are not able to even deliver. Government goes, and how many times haven't we had government go out there and look for people to come and build from SDX to God knows what, and we are still where we are. And you look at Achampo, who even came not in a democratic state, but was able to build Dansoman. So you're asking yourself, what kind of planning are they doing? As I was coming, I looked through today's paper. There's a cement factory.
From Morocco?
From Morocco. That's
the investors are from Morocco.
Good. And the first question I asked was...
Can I get the paper?
The first question I asked myself was, I hope they factored in the energy that they will need. Because already we are having doomsaw, the energy factor. What are they going to generate their own energy? Because that is going to need a whole lot of energy. You get me? So these are things that we must be looking at. How are we going to get there if we're always going to be thinking about things that will gain us points just to stay in power and not things that will give the future generation a chance to live and to survive?
So long-term plan is critical.
It's very critical.
For example, yesterday we had the Monetary Policy Committee meeting of the Bank of Ghana, and coming out of it, we're told the economic prospects are high. We're also expecting a Eurobond of annual cocoa syndication, $3 billion, and we're going out there.
Yes, we're going out there borrowing again.
That's borrowing, right? Well, from what Rodelin has said, and you have enumerated it several times, the precedent has always been set here in Ghana. We've had Ghana's first president who headed the CPP into power for some time, not given the chance to revolutionize what his own ideas were. But even the little that he did before he was booted out of power are very revolutionary as of today. So we have benchmarks by which we can learn from. What's the difficulty with us? We can't just learn?
I wish I can
shake you
as if you are President Kufuor
yes.
to say good talk.
Good talk.
I was going to say good talk, but this is President Kufuor talking. Very good talk, had the opportunity to lead this country, and what did we see?
So those are the difficulties we have. The leadership
you
itself
understand.
is...
So it is good talk. I am happy that I didn't come from any other person, but coming from President Kufuor, acknowledging that possibly all of them just passed through, they lacked what it takes to be the visionary leaders that our nation and our continent requires. So it is important that, having said this, we now go to see what we could have done better. What we could have done better was to create a vanguard of industries that will employ our people, to ensure that we do not see Africans going through the high seas and dying needlessly simply because they want to seek economic and social prospects in some other people's land, when indeed we had all the infrastructure we can put up. People ask the question, what is the raw material base of the United Kingdom? What is the raw material base of Japan? Japan is rocks. They produce, they export for us. Go to Israel, they take seawater, they convert it into...
They also have rocks.
Yeah.
They plant in the rocks.
They plant in the rock. In fact, they create their own lands. They take seawater, they convert the seawater, salty water, so they can drink it. They can use it for agricultural and industrial purposes. They are able to export food to us.
Who has everything?
Who have rainfall that will fall, and we don't have any clue as to even harvesting rainwater. So we allow the water to now become a disaster on us. We have flooding everywhere. And Bob Marley will say, in the abundance of water, fools are thirsty. So that is what we are. So when President Kufuor says that we don't have the leadership, I agree. But he was part of it. Recall that when we had food crisis, they said, they announced that we're going to have food crisis in the world. Ghana abound with arable land.
Yes, sir.
We abound, not that we just sat. What did our government do? Our government decided to take import duty on cereals and legumes. We took up the import duty. We just made it duty-free. So people can bring in maize. People can bring in rice, duty-free. Simply because we were told that the world is going to have food shortages. So people were to import into our country when all we could do was to empower our farmers so they can expand their farms. Ghana produced to become the source from where we should be selling food from. We didn't do that. That was
what you're saying is textbook, because you know it. I think, is it that
no, it's not that it's textbook.
No, no.
Farmer as well.
Yeah, I know.
So is
it that practically we can identify the difficulties, but practically when we get into the state in which we're supposed to be more productive as far as the output is,
let me tell you.
We can't. Now, I'll let you on this, because I just wanted to pick a thought of the Executive Director for the Ghana Institute of Governance and Security, a think tank, and David Agbe. A very good morning to you. The former President, John Agyekum Kufuor, has been talking about a leadership crisis in Africa. Is it that, is it a deficit of the political leadership, or that, well, the vision is not there to make sure whatever has been identified to be the deficiencies confronting the people of the African continent will then be translated into fruitful infrastructure as well as output for their people?
Yeah,
much, Roland. I think that what exactly President Kufuor said is been an understatement, admitting the fact that our leaders are not competent enough, and so they are rulers rather than leaders.
Well, he's been a leader before himself.
Precisely. He's part of it, and so he has admitted that. I mean, we don't have competent leaders, but we have, rulers. And so for him, he is not trying to exonerate himself from that equation. And so for me, you realize that President Kufuor 2008 thereabout, after he was about exiting power, you could realize that many people, as many as 17 presidential candidates contested, and it was so obvious that all of them were saying that if President Kufuor has become a president of this country, then everybody, all of those people could also become, president. So it tells you clearly that we do not have good leaders. We have, rulers. And so everybody thinks that I can also rule just like, my village chief. And so for me, the being is the fact that we need to actually, model people to rule or to govern us rather than to simply appoint people to say that they are rulers. And so there are a lot of things that we need to do to actually tell people, to actually lecture them, to actually educate them that these are, certain things that they need to do, and then they need to exhibit a certain leadership qualities and characteristics for us to see that, yes, these are leaders that we have, rather than the model of, rule. And so for me, it is an understatement in which we all need to buy into it and challenge our leaders that they need to do more and they need to learn, and they are not learning as well. I mean, there is a new phenomenon that is coming out in Ghana that all the leaders are saying that I have a tough skin, just like a crocodile skin, and so whatever that you say, I will not take it and all that. So they are exhibiting some kind of ignorance on us, and which is not good at all. So
okay.
I think that we need to actually, pin them down to provide a quality leadership, and that is the model that we need to actually let them be aware.
Okay, thank you very much, David Agbe, Executive Director for the Ghana Institute of Governance and Security. Now, in moving forward on the subject, is it that we're not taking cognizance of the fact that the world out there is moving, and we know that the world out there is moving, but we're just not pacing alongside?
I am alarmed at the choice of words by David Agbe, and this is a governance aspect, I'm told, to talk about imposing ignorance on us by our leaders. It's really a harsh word, I think so. Despite that, I may disagree with the content, but I think that the choice of words by our guest, doctor, has been very, very unfortunate. To also suggest that it is as a result of, quote, the incompetence of President Kufuor that warranted about 17 other aspirants to say that if President Kufuor could become president, why not? I think that is totally below the belt, and to suggest that those 17 others, after all, were not competent in managing the affairs of our nation. I think that they are qualified as Ghanaians, and by the MPP constitution at the time, they could run for president, and they were running. They did not infringe upon any law of Ghana. And so I think that it's totally below the belt. That said, let me continue from the fact. I think that, look, for instance, as one of the issues of rulership, if in order to solve a one-year budget disarray, you decide to sell a strategic project like Ghana Telecom, that cannot be visionary leadership. If because you are suffering a one-year deficit, the economy has just suffered a temporary lapse, you go and sell your Ghana Airways and now turn it into a chop bar, it is not visionary. When others were putting up this infrastructure, you should not come and sell it off. We should be putting in place. Look, under the PNDC, we sold the Black Star Line. 90% of the things we consume in this country are imported through our sea. Now we don't have our sea transport any longer. We've sold the Black Star Line, and recall that in 1979, Lehman brought about 6 new ships to augment the fleet to 18.
Sold them all.
We have sold them all, and we have even sold the dry dock.
Yeah, we've divested
Such that
everything.
when we had to build the FPSO in Nkrumah, we had to take it to Singapore to go and build there. We could not sit it in our own yard, so that our people will build it, or the experts will come and build it, and our people will learn. You understand? This tells you that we lack the leadership. I think going forward, look, we should plan and take our own steps. Why do we sit down for Europe, for instance, to go and do their economic partnership agreement and host it on us, when we can do a Ghana economic partnership agreement or an ECOWAS economic, so that we evolve our own trading channels, our own trading opinions,
exploit our own markets.
You understand? And take it out there and say, look, this is what we have. Those who want to trade with us in ECOWAS, this is our blueprint for trade. We sit down, for Europe to go and sit down, they factor the benefits of what they want to do, then they bring it to us, and our governments are tumbling over each other, tumbling and some are tumbling, just to go and endorse a pact that will not enhance the economic and social fortunes of our nations.
Now he's raised a critical issue about how perhaps we also need visionary leadership to even take advantage of the market around us. You go to Togo, you go to Benin, you go to Nigeria, imports.
Yes.
Now, among them, all of them have industries that produce almost the same that the next market can make use of. But they have to transcend oceans and go and bring different products. Just because the cost of production is so high, cost of even transportation to the next, and even the regulations within themselves are not flexible or friendly enough to themselves, but are friendly to somebody or a country outside the continent.
Just look out, Nigeria. They import salt from Brazil.
And we have a lot of salt lying
here.
And the water there is even drowning people.
And then you ask yourself, so where were the leaders when the Bagri Dam was being built by Burkina Faso, so that when they decide to open it, floods a third of the northern region? Where were our leaders? When they're thinking? Where were the experts?
ECOWAS?
Where was ECOWAS?
And that was done after 1975.
That's it, the Bagri Dam. And then you sit back, Roland, the issue at stake now is that leadership is not just that one person. It's all the other people that complement him to be able to deliver. And then we have a parliament that is supposed to guide us with all the legalities, legislature. But then you ask yourself, what caliber of people, what exposure do those parliamentarians have when they get into the House to be able to say no to the APA, to be able to say no to the Breeders' Bill, to be able to say no, we won't take GMO? What kind of knowledge do those parliamentarians have, the majority of them that are sitting there? Because I can say that if you look at 275, take a good look at their ages, at their professions, at their exposure, and you will find that for some of them, it's like something else when they get into parliament.
Well, but is it not also because of the political expediency for them and the convenience of it?
That's what I'm saying. The whole political system is wrong.
Because the expertise are there.
Yes, few of them.
But they compromise.
They compromise. Why do they compromise? I went to my village. We have this ancient, beautiful court that was built during the colonial times of stone. Most of these offices.
You mean pre-colonial?
Pre-colonial, well, pre-colonial times. Stone.
So it should be pre-colonial.
Very beautiful one. I get there and I look at this as a monument. You know,
as an attraction.
An attraction that people would come in and say, oh, this was the court that was here in Garu. It was built maybe 1930 or something. The next time I go, it's been plastered. You understand? And I ask, you see, it is not the fault of the DC. He has no exposure. He doesn't know anything about it.
He can't take advantage of whatever he has. He cannot take
advantage of those things because he has no exposure. We need to groom people to take up positions in this country. We need to groom people to know the realities and then to also study the trends in the world. And then know that at this time, this is what is happening. We're talking about technology. We're talking about computer age. And then we are giving computers to people who don't have lights. You go giving laptops to people. You distribute laptops to places that they don't have electricity. How are you going to get them to actually access and learn? And then also, we decided that we're going. How many computer literate educators do we have in this country? But now, you have to go and access your BECE or your SHC from the computer lab.
Well, we're told that the penetration is getting there.
Well, that's what they're saying. It's not getting there, you see.
It's not there.
Is it that we have a small market that is always getting at the access, but the access is not expanding?
No.
Because it's possible the market, the population that has access to is that same population that is getting access to perhaps new technologies, but as far as the base is concerned, it's not spreading in terms of the geographic or demographic population.
Well, let me say that, look, I think that we have appetite for things, and yet we don't have the capacity for those same things.
That's
So at the end of the day, we do things and only realize that we have regrets. Don't forget that we go and import things only to get here to realize that
they are not tropicalized.
They are not tropicalized.
They are not good
they are not capable of leading what we want to do. So I think that it is the appetite not backed by the capacity to have it.
You know, our leaders.
It seems that everything we'll talk about today is or we've always been talking about is always linked to some level of leadership. Because yesterday, the committee, is in Mines and Energies Committee looked at that very agreement by the MPA to lease or rent for $63,000 their office accommodation. And apparently, now the thing is that they are supposed to, they've paid up front or are supposed to pay up front for 3 years, and within the period they've been advised they should now put up their building. And it's in excess of over $2 million.
Can you imagine? You know? And then you sit back this morning and think that we are having a summit, ECOWAS summit.
No, we'll talk about the ECOWAS summit.
The MPA has
no, I'm not talking about but at the Movenpick, Ambassador. It just tells you.
Which used to be Ambassador Hotel. And it's
this
for
was
us.
gifted to, I mean, you can't just phantom where our leaders are going.
You know?
It's just incredible. If you're going to talk about Ghana, you get a heart attack.
MPA, take National Health Insurance. They build their own, what we call headquarters.
Yeah, just around the bridge.
They have built the headquarters are next. They have built about all the regional head offices. And I'm told they are about building even some district hospitals, offices. Then even you go to, I think, NADMO, then you notice that they have also built their headquarters out of their own internally generated resources. MPA of all, for the several years of its existence, should be renting. And I'm told that
I think they're in their 10th year or almost in their 10th year.
They have been at, they were at cantonments where I'm told that the rent was less. They decided to move to East Legon. By every Ghanaian, you know that cantonment should be more expensive than East Legon. And then they go and rent a facility.
But the structure is different.
They go and rent a facility that is more expensive. Look, they should lift the veil and check who are those who own that facility.
What did I say the last time?
They should lift and check who are those who own that facility and what is the interest in going to rent that facility at such an exorbitant price, when indeed we could have done less. When we are giving out government bungalows and selling them to
private developers,
government officials that ever served, we are selling them so they can use it when our state institutions cannot find place to even house themselves to do their work. Are we going or we have come?
We're just looting. We're getting
rent, 63,000.
That's 189 million cedis.
You know, we talked about it here.
189 million cedis.
No, it's more than that. It's 3 years now. Now they have to.
So now that's a month. Now multiply it by 12 times 3.
My goodness. I think we discussed this about 2 weeks ago or so when I was here. And I just felt that, you know, we have to dig deep.
Well, now formally it's been sent to a committee. The committee said, oh, go ahead. Even though also, we've had also some contrary directive that was issued by the Chief of Staff, yes. Prosper Bani, who said, well, forthwith, they should cancel the rent, should not be renewed. Now it goes to the committee level in Parliament, and I think there was a compromise there. It said Well,
But
go ahead.
But I've always said that when I hear members of parliament call for a bipartisan investigation,
It's never bipartisan.
It's never
No,
bipartisan.
my argument has been
Unless they
that
have some stake in
parliament is not competent to do those investigations.
Why?
Oh, why? We are told by PCO for it
That they give you
our
5,000.
parliament can be compromised. We are told by the former majority leader and minority leader that, look, they take bribes. And many other things. That same institution now wants to come and tell us, for instance, and I was totally shocked when they had the effrontery to come and say that you set up a parliamentary committee to do investigations on Ghana's participation in the World Cup. I said, gee, this same group their own members are telling us about their own inadequacies are the same people that say that, look, let's go and do this.
Okay. Now, privately, I know even if you have your own company and you even go and take, let's say, a loan of 2 million, and your interest is even going to be 50% of it over the 3-year period. So you pay, let's say, 3 million, and you amortize it over the period. And you know that you're in a certain structure. Even your own families, you can squeeze, you can bear the pain for the next 3 years to get your structure completed and move into a new structure. You don't go and rent at a high cost and try to go and put up another structure at another high cost. So now they will try to build a new place by the end of the rental period in 3 years by renting exorbitantly in excess.
Why can't we just
several millions of dollars?
So parliament decision. I'm sure that normally in rent and tenancy agreement, if you want to cancel, you give 3 months notification.
Or something, 3 months. If no, it depends. It depends on the one who's renting it out. You can come to
my other suspicion is that since they claim they have paid the money already,
who paid it?
The MPA. They are paid in advance. These days, rent advance is the order of the day. So they are paid 3 years in advance.
Rent advance is the order of the day. But the laws of this country
I'm saying that is the order of the day. I didn't say that is the law of the day.
So we should use the law.
You understand?
And the law
so they have
says 6 months.
Okay. So now now we have this very conclusion or decision by the parliamentary committee. So it's as if they've been given the go-ahead.
Or they've overruled what the chief of staff has
Well,
said.
yes, they've overruled
Well,
them.
that even beats my mind. I'm not even coming.
You know, but the thing is that I'm just saying that let's go by the law. As a state institution, let's go by the law. It's 6 months. So you cannot go into a tenancy agreement for 3 years.
They should lift the veil and check who
so
are the
let
owners
us find
of
out.
that property.
If it means bringing in the law, let's do that. Because we cannot afford for someone to just go and sign off this huge sum of money, you know, and to think that the building is even bigger than they need, and they are now going to sublet. So let's go by the law. I will ask the Attorney General's Department to look into it and actually find out if the law is actually the 6 months and they signed for 3 years, we need to go to court to get this thing done. Because it's going to create problems for future generations. NPA, you sit back and you say because it's oil, so what? Cocoa is equally as important to us.
More
Cocoa
important.
has kept us. But I don't think they have all these kind of things that, you know,
I've
like
just cited some few institutions that have been able to
offices
do it
and
within their
stuff.
own
Why?
internally generated funds.
You know,
I can't just understand
we
NPA
need,
of
look,
all.
and then we look, yesterday, was it yesterday or, I was then watching Metro TV, Insights, and you have one ministry, a ministry with what, 60 air conditioners, 32 refrigerators, 16 TV sets, one ministry. And you sit back and tell us we are
With many
poor.
offices.
I mean, can you imagine just one ministry with this kind?
You want them to drink hot, warm water?
What warm water? Just dispensers is
It's
good
actually
enough.
healthy.
And we open the windows. That's why we have windows. It's not every, look, you go to certain offices and a cubicle has an air conditioner in it. A small cubicle. Why? Would you do that if it was your own business? Would you do that? And then you have people actually turn on their engines and leave it on because they want to come from their meeting straight into a vehicle that is air conditioned. Is that how we want to rule this country? Is that what we are using the farmers' money for? All those people who go with the snake bites and everything, is that what we want? It isn't just fair. So all these things add up to the kind of problems we are having in this country. With nurses student nurses not getting paid.
No, it's supposed to be 63.
It's 63. Next student nurses not getting paid. PROTAG wanting to go on strike, UTAG wanting to go on strike. All manner of people want to go on strike. Today, as a country, we are going to buy cement at 33 Ghana cedis in some places.
35 in some
or
places.
35. Why?
And we have all manner of buildings going on.
And yes, and yet we are still seeing people putting up buildings.
A lot of buildings.
There's so much poverty. People can't afford 3 square meals. People can't afford to buy. Look, people are turning off their deep freezers in the morning before they go to work because they cannot afford to even pay for utility bills.
Just the last, we were talking about
not fair.
an educational loan that has also generated controversy and etc. Now we're talking about
No, that loan, I'd like to make a statement on that loan concerning
wait, okay, so when it comes to your turn, then we're talking about a state institution that is expected to rent. That is renting at an exorbitant price, and we're told that other state institutions are also doing same. Now, is it a matter of priority, and is it that perhaps because the structure at the top is wrong, and the practice or the norm at the top is also wrong, it has trickled down to the very fiber of the society?
I complained about the issue of planning deficiency in our country, and that is affecting the way we do things. And so obviously, if you take that you set up institutions without finding out how those institutions are going to be housed, you will have this kind of difficulties. We have created district assemblies, and you just name them on paper, and you get there and they don't have structures. What do we see? We see that they go and buy containers and come and start as offices. Worst cases, they go and rent people's private houses and they use them as offices. And of course, you can understand, once it's the government that is coming to rent a place, the tensions are. So if you set up an MPA.
That was the first time I was hearing that rent goes by
square meter. Yeah, one is government,
okay,
square meter.
so you're talking about this.
So if you do this and you set up on paper without backing it with the infrastructure, you will have a problem. Let me give you. Under Nkrumah, you have the LoRa and most of the districts that were set. Every district that was set, before anything at all, you had a post office. You had Ghana Water and Sewerage Corporation. You had what we call police station. You had a district hospital. These things were established.
The office.
You understand? You had these infrastructure established as basics to support the creation of the assembly. Go around and see the assemblies that we have created in recent.
Yes, we've got. I've got.
You understand? And it amazes you. What is the thinking? Political expediency, or is backed by the thinking that, look, we need to do these things. Most of the assemblies do not have a police station. They do not have a water station. The 5-kilometer roads that we are supposed to construct, we have not done zero.
Nothing.
So what it boils down to is that our planning,
we haven't even taken off.
We have not taken off. Our planning is just is inadequate. So the issue is that why do you set up NPA without finding out where you are going to put NPA? How come that the Ministry of Energy cannot house NPA?
How come?
How come?
Okay. Now, is it a matter of priority? Is it that our priorities are so wrong that we're getting everything wrong?
Well, sometimes it's not a matter of priority. I think sometimes it's just a matter of wanting to steal money from the states. Because sometimes certain organizations spring out and you ask yourself certain questions. Like he's saying, why couldn't NPA go into Ministry of Energy? So if somebody sits back and says, look, let's set up yet another office because my friend will be supplying the computers, another friend will be supplying the stationery, another friend will be supplying the furniture, you know, so create loot and share. And that's the whole idea. It's not priority. It's just a question of let's create a loot and share it. This is the whole thing. And we have to start thinking about ways of cutting down government costs or you know, to get this country moving, because there's so much waste. So much waste. Some people are getting too much and some people are getting too little. And that is what is creating so many
That brings into the question of priority. But, for example, we're currently not meeting our statutory payments, and we have states, workers of state institutions that will always want to go on strike because their due is not coming to them.
You know,
but then we also tend to borrow and spend on things that...
Let me give you one example. Do you know the traffic flow on the motorway alone?
Which one? Tema.
You mean the vehicular traffic?
Yes.
Daily.
Do you know the tolls that
Daily.
is
the tolls that's collected?
A
No,
day?
I've not been apprised with the current numbers.
The Akosombo Adome Bridge could generate 90,000 a month. And I'm told that the 4 or 7 toll booths at the motorway generated just 70,000 a month.
How?
Yeah.
Yes, somebody's pocketing.
You understand? Just, I mean, you should help us
because
to...
I apply that road every
No,
day.
you should help us to unravel how come Adome Bridge, that is almost a single lane, that carries only people that are going through the Volta. But the motorway, with all the traffic, can be collecting less in a month than the Adome Bridge when the toll is uniform across the country. You understand?
In, out.
In, out. So question is, who is it that is doing what? And how come that our nation is suffering at the expense of individual benefits? Somebody should do it, and maybe you want to take it as a project to check and cross-check these things for us. Secondly, I think that prioritization is important. But some of the issues you've spoken about, statutory payments, it's amazing. Some of these institutions actually are giving earmarked funds. For instance, Get Fund, there is a percentage that, look, every one of us that goes to a restaurant to get something to chop,
and pay VAT.
you pay VAT. That percentage is there.
And it's supposed every
It's about 20% of the total that is collected of VAT. It's there. So it should go straight into the Get Fund. How come that it goes through some other funds and then the difference? Because the VAT is collected. It is not that the VAT is not collected, so Get Fund will be in arrears. The VAT is collected. The payments are made. The portion that is supposed to go into Get Fund is not done. How?
So who
You go to
dictates
National
it?
Health Insurance. It is an earmarked fund that anybody who go to any restaurant to get any service, even mobile cars that you buy, you pay your VAT. That VAT is collected. Just take that portion and give it to the health insurance so that they can manage their affairs. That fund too is collected and it doesn't get going.
GRA, Ghana Revenue Authority. They've got to give us some answers.
Okay, the Bank of Ghana has increased the current prime rates to 19%. It has an influence on the cost of borrowing in the domestic market.
How will it?
Well, I don't know whether there is any significance in this prime rate and base rate.
Well, you don't believe in it.
No,
I don't believe
No, the truth is that, why? Even when we reduce the prime rate, the influence is that it's supposed to bring down the cost of borrowing. Interest rates have to come down so that contractors and other people who borrow to go and do their projects, they will have these loans at very low interest rates, so they will be able to execute their projects. Unfortunately, these things do not happen because other factors inhibit the ability of the banks to do so. Unfortunately, our national banks are not coming to the rescue. For instance, if you bring down the prime rate, you expect Ghana Commercial Bank to lower their interest rates, have money to support construction and contractors. You expect Agri-Development Bank to lower their interest rate. You expect National Investment Bank to also do the same.
So all these banks you're mentioning are state banks?
They are state banks. So that if they lower, the private banks will be compelled to follow.
Because it's a competitive environment.
Because it's a competitive environment. And so once they lower and businessmen can go there and contract the loans at lower interest rate, the private banks will realize that, look, people are running away from them. They will be compelled by the directive of the Bank of Ghana to also lower, so that at the end of the day, the businessmen can get the facilities to do their job. Unfortunately, our banks are not interested. Our national banks are not interested in this. So you see that it is rather the private banks that are getting most of these businessmen that will come to them because they have provided flexible ways of financing projects on their behalf. Most importantly, when government gives out projects, they will tell you that in 3 months you are going to get your payment. Trust me, it may take you 2 years.
Well, so far we've had
you understand?
Those in arrears in excess of 2 years.
Yes. So, and when it happens that way, the interest alone overcome the principal. And these businessmen, some of them commit suicide as a result of the huge loans that are hanging on them. They've done a project, they expect to pay and get something small, no few. They don't get that no few, and it comes with a debt in addition.
Okay.
Well, for me, if it comes to the state banks, it's just because they are not able to keep up because government is borrowing. I mean, government owes them so much.
Well, by capitalization, the last,
You know?
the last financial year, GCB was the best performing bank as far as P&L was concerned.
Yeah.
Yes, I know that because I have some of my mates who work in the bank.
Well, that's good to hear, because I would bank with GCB any day, and I've always banked with them.
Nah, I'm a nationalist.
Yes, I'll bank with GCB any day.
You're a socialist. So.
I mean,
now we have ECOWAS. We're having a meeting starting today. They call it the Media Summit of ECOWAS. It's chaired by Ghana's president.
Can I say something about the loan that was taken for the sanitary towels for the young ladies? I am in total support. I congratulate the Minister of Education.
Oh, you're in total support?
I am in total support. Because if you have gone around this country and you see young girls, you realize that we are not all at the same level. If you go to SHS in certain parts of this country, you will see that girls really do not go to class
as a result of it?
As a result of it.
It's not because they have crumbs?
No, Roland, it is expensive to buy. Some cannot afford. Some parents cannot afford. And then they also tend to use unhygienic things, you know, to care for themselves. That also gives them medical problems. And therefore, if a woman who is a minister, a mother, has seen through this, and there's been so much research, I don't see why Ghanaians should just look at it like it's just sanitary towels. I'm even going...
And whether it's a priority?
It's a priority when it comes to...
It is a priority.
It is a priority when it comes to female education. I would even say that they should even add underwear, panties, to it, if it's possible. Because you might give the sanitary towel and the girl might not even have the money to buy the underwear.
You mean...
Yeah, to keep it in place.
There's the sanitary towel, but no pants.
Yeah, to keep it in place. You know, when we were growing up, we had belts to hook it up, but it's not like that now. So at least you need an underwear, or they have to give them belts to hook it up. But whatever it is, I think that Ghanaians should.
What do you mean belt? Waistbands?
Yeah, we had a belt, and then it had a hook. You know, in our time, it had a hook, so you hook it on back and front to keep it in place. And that was to make sure that you go to school not looking at your back.
Was it supplied freely in your time?
In our time, it came with the school. Like you go and they give you three
for the 3 months.
Yes, 3 for the month.
For the 3 months.
If you were in need of it. The other thing is that you see, we tend to look at these things and feel that we are all the same. No, when you come to the big cities, even it is difficult. People are using all manner of things. You won't believe it, you know. And so we have to. It is just for a short while. Just to get these people to at least feel part of this country. Let the village girl go to school. Let the poor person's child also go. Look, Roland, you go to a school, girls, when it's time, they either don't go, or when they go, before you get up, you tell the next person, I'm getting up, look at my back for me. You want to see if you've soiled yourself. You get me? And then, when I was in school, in our time, you'd always know when someone was in her period, because we always walk out with a cardigan. And you tie the cardigan around your waists. And that was to help you. The cardigan is hanging there. As soon as you get up, you tie it. So that if you soiled yourself, you wouldn't, you know, it wouldn't be seen. So these are things that young people go through, especially in our under...
So you think that this was empathizing enough?
Yes, I think it was.
I've never heard very sincere...
Yes.
Let me...
Because well, my opinion had been...
People look at it that it's a personal thing. People look at it that
we'll talk about ECOWAS. So.
I will talk about
You're supposed to talk about ECOWAS.
But let me also touch briefly on
sanitary towels.
Yeah, yes, it's important.
I experienced something in 1987.
With sanitary towels?
When we're in...
The absence of it?
When we were in JSS, and this was the experimental JSS, not the omnibus JSS. And at that time, this young lady in our class, I don't know, she didn't know that she had even, all of a sudden she woke up and
The soil.
The soil, blood. The class just went hooting and shouting. It took the entire school. This girl had to cover herself. Her other young ladies took her home. The headmaster had to come and...
very traumatized.
Yeah.
Yes, it's
it took the girl more than a month. Indeed, that term, she didn't write exam.
That's it.
Yeah.
She didn't write exam simply because she had a flu. And I've seen it many times that, look, during exam week, you are about writing exam and some of the ladies will not come to school. You are finding out, and it's simply because they are flowing and they will not be able to do this. It's amazing. So when we have something like this, and we sit down in our urban Accra, our urban Kumasi or Takoradi, and we take mockery of these matters, I can tell you, get to the rural areas and they are hailing. In any case, if yesteryears were able to buy condoms for men, why don't we think that women are also of a priority and something that concerns them and concerns all of us? I think that this is something that we should all comment. What I protest, is that at the end of the day, we are going to import this instead of creating it locally.
No, I think Fatex is manufactured in Ghana.
We should do it locally so that we can create jobs for our local industries rather than going out there to import it. ECOWAS.
1 minute.
If you ask me, its relevance, I don't know. Because there's nothing that ECOWAS is doing to ensure that we have continental integration. You understand? So it's sub-regional integration. You have to go to Nigeria, you go through all the rigidities. You go to Togo, you go through all the rigidities. And where still, Guta is saying that Nigerians should not be allowed even into Ghana to come and do trading.
So where's the ECOWAS?
So where is the ECOWAS that we are talking about? I hope that today they will be able to reconfigure the agenda for ECOWAS and also tool it in such a way that it will lead to continental integration.
Roddy, you want to comment?
Well, I just want to say that I don't see its relevance now because it seems that all the leaders are just fighting for themselves.
But I will go there anyway.
If you look across, you find that there's trouble everywhere around the West African belt. So we just hope that they would stick to getting good leadership, good governance in their various countries. That would help us, instead of going to sit down and talk about any biometric residence permits or whatever. That's what they're going to discuss. Yeah. At least they should just focus on the governance.
Okay.
Good governance.
ECOMOG ensured that Samuel Doe was killed then?
Yes, they sat there and watched.
ECOMOG ensured that Samuel Doe was killed.
We sat
and
watched.
AU sat and watched Libya to be murdered.
So okay. What's our point?
Africanist.
Yeah.
Pan-Africanist. I have had in the studio today Bernard Mona, General Secretary of the PNC, a very Pan-African person, and also Rodaline Imoro Ayana, the second Vice Chairperson of the CPP. Thanks for joining me.
I thought you are a Pan-Africanist too.
Well, aren't we all supposed to be? Aren't we all supposed to be?